The alarm goes off before the sun rises, a shrill sound that cuts through the fragile silence of the early morning. Your body feels heavy, your eyes still begging for more rest. Yet you drag yourself up because the day has already begun. There is no time to breathe, no time to stretch, because your phone is flashing with emails, texts, and reminders. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already racing ahead. Meetings, deadlines, bills, appointments, a list that never ends. Coffee becomes the first medicine of the day, a liquid bandage to cover exhaustion. You gulp it down quickly, not to savor, but to survive. Then comes the rush through traffic, horns blaring, red lights testing your patience, the clock reminding you that you are late again. By the time you sit down at your desk, you are already drained, even though the day has only just begun. This is not a rare scene. It is daily life for millions. The rhythm of modern existence feels like a treadmill that never stops, speeding up when you least expect it, forcing you to run faster, even as your lungs scream for air. We call it productivity, ambition, responsibility, but beneath the labels lies an unspoken truth. Many of us are drowning in stress. You can feel it in your shoulders, always tight, carrying invisible weights. You can hear it in your breath, shallow and quick, like someone running from danger. You can sense it in your chest, that familiar heaviness that refuses to leave. Stress has become the silent companion of the modern world, a shadow that follows us from the office to the kitchen, from the traffic jam to the bedroom. It does not ask for permission. It simply moves in, rearranging our moods, shaping our days, and sometimes even stealing our nights. There are studies and statistics that confirm it, but you do not need research to know the reality. You feel it. You live it. You wake up tired, you go to sleep restless, and in between you chase tasks that never seem to end. The strange part is how normal it all feels. Stress has been woven so deeply into our culture that many accept it as the cost of living. If you are stressed, it must mean you are working hard, you are doing something important, you are keeping up. Yet inside, a quiet voice wonders, is this really living? Imagine yourself on a crowded subway, packed shoulder to shoulder with strangers. Everyone's eyes are glued to their screens, scrolling, typing, swiping. The air is heavy, not just with the smell of metal and sweat, but with unspoken tension. Each person carries their private storm, invisible but palpable, and together it forms an atmosphere that suffocates. You realize stress is not just personal, it is collective. It radiates from one to another, a contagious energy spreading silently. And yet, despite its weight, we rarely stop to question it. We adapt, we normalize. We push forward, whispering to ourselves that one day, if we work hard enough, it will get easier. One day, the tasks will slow down. One day, the responsibilities will shrink. But that day rarely comes. Instead, the treadmill accelerates. Promotions bring more work, not less. Success brings more demands, not more peace. Even vacations feel like extensions of work, with phones buzzing and laptops tucked into luggage. You lie on the beach, staring at the waves, but your mind is still in the office, still negotiating deals, still drafting emails. Stress has a way of disguising itself. It tells you that everything depends on you, that if you pause, the world will fall apart. It whispers that rest is weakness, that stillness is laziness. And so you keep running, ignoring the growing fatigue, hoping that one more achievement, one more milestone will finally allow you to rest. But the rest never arrives, because the cycle never ends. Perhaps you have noticed how stress infiltrates even the smallest moments. You are eating dinner with your family, but your mind is on tomorrow's presentation. You are playing with your child, but your phone buzzes with a message from your boss. You are lying in bed with your partner, but you are silently scrolling through your to-do list. The body is present, but the heart is absent. Stress steals not only our energy, but also our presence, our ability to truly live the moment we are in. It is like a thief that breaks into the house of your life, not to take the furniture or the jewelry, but to rob you of time. Time with your loved ones, time with yourself, time to simply be. Sometimes the pressure feels physical, like a tight band wrapped around your chest. Sometimes it feels mental, like a fog that clouds every thought. Sometimes it feels emotional, like an undercurrent of sadness or anger that you cannot explain. However it shows up, it leaves the same mark, a sense of being trapped. And in that trap, hope begins to shrink. You tell yourself it is just a season, just a phase, but deep down you wonder if this season has no end. The truth is that stress is not just about external circumstances. Two people can face the same workload, the same environment, the same challenges, and yet one collapses while the other remains calm. What makes the difference is not only the situation, but the way the mind engages with it. Stress feeds on our interpretations, our expectations, our unexamined habits of thought. It is less about what happens and more about how we carry what happens. Think of a glass of water. Hold it for a minute, it is light. Hold it for an hour, it grows heavy. Hold it for a day, it becomes unbearable. The weight has not changed, but your ability to carry it has. Stress works the same way. The demands may be real, but the burden multiplies the longer we grip them without release. Perhaps this is why some mornings feel impossible before the day has even started. You are not only carrying today's weight, but also yesterday's leftovers and tomorrow's predictions. It is no wonder your body aches and your mind spins. The cycle of busyness has no mercy. It consumes the strongest and the weakest alike, making no distinction between the successful executive and the struggling student. It traps the stay-at-home parent and the traveling entrepreneur in the same net. And beneath all the different roles and stories, there lies the same silent suffering, the feeling that life is slipping through your fingers while you are too busy to notice. Have you ever stopped at a red light and suddenly felt like crying, though you could not say why? Have you ever walked into the office and felt your heart sink, not because of any specific problem, but because the weight of it all seemed unbearable? Have you ever sat on the couch at night, surrounded by everything you thought you wanted, and still felt an emptiness pressing down? These are the quiet signals of stress, the body and soul begging for relief. But relief does not come in another cup of coffee, another scroll through social media, another temporary escape. Those are bandages, not cures. The deeper question remains unanswered. How do we live without being devoured by the endless cycle of busyness? The world tells you to run faster, to optimize, to multitask, to hustle harder. But has any of that truly set you free? Or has it only bound you tighter, chaining you to a rhythm that is breaking you from the inside out? Stress promises progress, but delivers exhaustion. It promises control, but delivers chaos. It promises meaning, but delivers emptiness. And unless we stop, unless we question, unless we dare to step off the treadmill, it will keep pulling us forward until we collapse. The irony is that what we are chasing is not more tasks completed or more hours worked. What we are really chasing is peace, a sense of enough, a sense of rest. But as long as we look for it in the same place that creates our suffering, we will never find it. Stress is not a badge of honor. It is a silent thief, and it has already stolen too much. The question now is, will you let it continue, or will you begin to reclaim your life, moment by moment? Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a glass of water just shaken with sand. Everything inside is cloudy, restless, impossible to see through. This is what stress does to the inner world. The more you stir, the more agitated it becomes. But if you simply put the glass down, let it rest, the sand settles, the water clears. The clarity was always there, hidden beneath the turbulence. This is the simple but profound truth that ancient teachings remind us of. Peace does not come from adding more. It comes from pausing, from allowing. When we hear the word mindfulness, it can sound like a trendy slogan, something you read in magazines or hear in podcasts, but its essence is timeless. Mindfulness means being fully present with what is, without trying to escape, without rushing to fix, without running ahead. It is the art of stopping in the middle of the storm and realizing that you are more than the storm. Stress wants you to believe that you are trapped, but mindfulness reveals that you are free to notice. You are not the thought racing through your head. You are the awareness that sees it come and go. Like clouds crossing the sky, each thought has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Some clouds are dark, some are light, but none can stain the sky itself. In the same way, no thought, no wave of stress can alter the pure awareness that is your true nature. The first step is deceptively simple. Breathe. Right now, wherever you are, take one conscious breath. Inhale slowly, feel the air enter. Notice the rise of your chest, the expansion of your belly. Exhale gently, let the breath leave. Feel the body soften. That is all. Nothing magical, nothing forced, just one moment of noticing. Yet in that one breath, there is space. Space between you and the rush. Space between you and the pressure. Space that stress cannot touch. Imagine if you carried this simple act into the chaos of your day. In traffic. Instead of clenching the wheel and cursing the red lights, you breathe. At your desk, before opening another email, you breathe. With your child tugging at your sleeve, instead of snapping in irritation, you breathe. One breath is not much, but it is a doorway. Through it, you begin to see that stress is not permanent. It is a passing wave, and you do not have to drown. Many people resist this practice because it feels too small, too quiet. They think, how can something so simple change the weight of my life? But the truth is that the greatest transformations often begin with the smallest shifts. A seed is tiny, yet within it lies a forest. A single spark can light a fire. A moment of awareness can open a new way of being. There is a story from Zen about a student who asked his master how long it would take to reach peace. The master replied, "If you take one step, it is right here. If you chase it for 1,000 miles, it will always be far away." Stress makes us chase. Mindfulness invites us to stop chasing and discover that what we long for is already here. Think of your mind like a room cluttered with furniture. Every corner is filled with piles, every surface buried under objects. You walk in and feel suffocated, unable to move. But what if you begin to clear one small space? Just one corner, one shelf. Suddenly, the room feels different. You can breathe, you can move, you can rest. In the same way, you do not have to clear every thought, every worry, every problem. Begin with one breath, one moment, one pause. Slowly, the mind finds space again. Stress thrives on speed. It multiplies when we rush, when we pile task upon task without stopping. Mindfulness interrupts that momentum. It says, stop, look, be here, even for a second. That second becomes an anchor in the storm. The body responds too. Science now confirms what wisdom has always known. When we breathe deeply and slow down, our nervous system shifts. The heart calms, the muscles loosen, the hormones of fight and flight recede. The body remembers safety. And when the body remembers safety, the mind begins to trust again. This is not about escaping responsibility. It is not about quitting your job, abandoning your family, or ignoring your duties. On the contrary, mindfulness makes you more capable. When you are no longer consumed by stress, you have the energy to respond with clarity. Instead of reacting in anger, you respond with patience. Instead of collapsing in exhaustion, you move with steady energy. You become more present, more alive, more human. Stress convinces us that we must control everything. Mindfulness reveals that we do not need to control. We only need to see clearly. A bird does not control the wind, but it adjusts its wings. A sailor does not command the ocean, but with awareness, he steers the boat. In the same way, we cannot erase the demands of life, but with awareness, we can navigate them without drowning. Picture this. You are walking through a forest. The path is winding, the ground uneven. If your mind is elsewhere, thinking of bills or arguments, you stumble, you fall. But if you pay attention to each step, the walk becomes smoother, the journey safer. Life is no different. Awareness of each step, each breath, each word transforms even the most stressful day into a walk you can manage. There is another parable often told. Two monks once walked together and came to a river. A woman stood there, unable to cross. One monk, bound by rules, refused to help. The other lifted her and carried her across. Hours later, the first monk scolded him, saying, "You broke the vow. You touched a woman." The second monk replied, "Brother, I put her down hours ago, but you are still carrying her." How often do we carry stress long after the moment has passed? The meeting is over, but you replay it for hours. The argument ended, but you nurse the anger all night. The bill has been paid, but you still feel the fear of not enough. We keep carrying long after it is necessary. Mindfulness teaches us to put it down, to meet the moment, act wisely, and then let it go. Not because it did not matter, but because carrying it longer only multiplies the pain. You may wonder, is this really possible? Can ordinary people in busy modern lives practice mindfulness? The answer is yes, and it begins not in silence retreats or mountain monasteries, but in the ordinary flow of daily life. Washing dishes, you can notice the warmth of the water. Walking to your car, you can notice the ground beneath your feet. Listening to a friend, you can truly hear their words instead of planning your reply. These are not exotic rituals. They are simple choices. But these choices, repeated, reshape the mind. The more you practice, the more you notice that stress still arises, but it no longer dominates. It comes like a wave, but you are learning to surf. You fall sometimes, yes, but you get back up, steadier each time. And slowly, the cycle of busyness begins to loosen its grip. The world remains demanding. The tasks remain many, but inside, a new spaciousness opens. You discover that you can move through life without being consumed by it. You can work without being enslaved, love without clinging, rest without guilt. Stress no longer defines you. You become like the sky, vast, clear, untouched, no matter how many clouds drift across. This is the gift waiting when we dare to pause, to breathe, to notice. It is not far away. It is not reserved for saints or sages. It is here now, in this very breath. The question is not whether peace exists, but whether you are willing to stop long enough to let it reveal itself. Stress will invite you to run. Mindfulness will invite you to stay. And in staying, you may discover that what you were chasing has been here all along. The envelope arrives in the mailbox, thin but heavy with anxiety. Inside is the credit card bill, another reminder of dinners, clothes, gadgets, and groceries already consumed, yet still waiting to be paid. You open it and feel that familiar drop in your stomach. The numbers never lie, and they never seem to shrink. You tell yourself next month will be different, but deep down, you know it will not. Money has a way of slipping through fingers faster than water, and the harder you try to hold it, the faster it runs. This story is not yours alone. Across the country, millions live paycheck to paycheck, juggling bills, trying to balance loans, mortgages, student debt, car payments. The weight is relentless, and the silence around it makes it heavier. Few people talk openly about money struggles, so each person assumes they are failing alone, when in truth, they are part of a vast crowd quietly drowning under the same waves. The irony is that money was supposed to be security. From childhood, we are told to study hard, get good jobs, build savings, and then life will be safe. But safety always seems just out of reach. You save for emergencies, then the emergencies come. You invest for retirement, but the market shifts. You work overtime for extra pay, only to see it swallowed by taxes and expenses. Like a horizon that recedes as you walk toward it, financial security seems close, but never arrives. Picture yourself scrolling through your phone, seeing images of friends on vacation, buying new homes, driving new cars. The comparison sharpens the sting. You ask yourself, why am I not there yet? Why is it always a struggle? The pressure builds, not only from within, but from the culture that glorifies wealth as the measure of worth. Success is equated with dollars, self-esteem is tied to possessions, and happiness is packaged as something you can swipe a card to purchase. And so you buy, not always because you need, but because for a moment, the purchase soothes the ache. A new jacket, a new phone, a night out. The thrill is real, but short-lived, replaced the next day by the same anxiety, now with an extra number on the bill. Stress from money is not just about arithmetic. It seeps into relationships. Couples fight over spending, parents worry about providing, children grow up sensing the tension. It shapes health, because sleepless nights and constant worry weaken the body. It shapes identity, because people measure themselves by their bank accounts, judging success or failure, not by character, but by currency. But have you noticed how unstable this system really is? The job that feels secure today can disappear tomorrow. The house you worked for can be lost in a downturn. The savings you collected for years can vanish in a crash. This is the hidden truth. Money is not the rock we believe it to be. It is fluid, unstable, constantly moving. And when you tie your peace to something that unstable, you guarantee yourself suffering. The Buddha once compared it to grasping sand. Hold it gently, and some remains in your palm. Clench your fist tightly, and it all slips through the cracks. Money works the same way. The tighter you cling, the more desperate the pursuit, the less peace you have. Think about the times you told yourself, if I just earn this much, I will be okay. Then you reach that number, only to raise the bar higher. The finish line always moves. The satisfaction always fades, because the mind that seeks security outside never rests. It always wants more, always fears loss, always compares with others. You see it in people who have far more than enough, yet lie awake worrying about markets and profits. You see it in celebrities who appear to have everything yet confess to emptiness and despair. The cycle is endless because the hunger is not for money itself, but for the feeling of safety. And safety built on something impermanent can never satisfy. This is where wisdom offers a different perspective. Instead of tying peace to numbers on a screen or possessions in a house, it invites us to look at the mind that grasps. Why do we believe more will finally make us secure? Why do we think ownership equals happiness? If everything outside is temporary, how could it give permanent peace? Imagine standing on the shore, watching waves crash and retreat. You cannot stop them. You cannot predict them. You cannot command them. But you can step back. You can build your home not at the edge where the waves reach, but on higher ground. In the same way, money will rise and fall. Wealth will come and go. But if your sense of stability rests on higher ground, on values, on inner strength, on enoughness, then the waves cannot sweep you away. There is a deep liberation in the phrase, "I have enough." Not because you have everything, not because the numbers are high, but because you stop measuring your worth by numbers at all. Enoughness is an inner decision, not an external condition. It is choosing to value peace over possessions, choosing to see wealth not as what you own, but as the freedom from endless craving. Reflect on the moments when you felt most alive. Was it when you held cash in your hand? Or was it when you laughed with someone you love? Was it when you opened a package? Or when you stood in nature, breathless at a sunset? Real wealth is measured in presence, in gratitude, in connection. And yet, the world constantly distracts you from this truth, telling you to work more, buy more, own more. So the journey back to sanity is not about abandoning money altogether. It is about placing it in its rightful place. Money is a tool like fire. Used wisely, it cooks your food and warms your home. Used unwisely, it burns you alive. The tool is not the enemy. The attachment is. Think of a traveler crossing a river. He builds a raft and it carries him safely to the other side. But once across, if he insists on carrying the raft on his back, everywhere he goes, he turns a helpful tool into a burden. Money is that raft. Needed at times, useful in purpose, but never meant to be clung to as identity or source of self-worth. When you loosen the grip, something shifts. The anxiety eases because you no longer demand the impossible, that money make you safe forever. The comparisons soften because you realize no one is truly secure through possessions. The endless hunger quiets because you see the illusion for what it is. The cycle of debt and desire loses its power when you step outside of it, even slightly. You may still have bills, you may still work hard, but inside there is space. You begin to see that while the world runs after more, you can practice contentment with what is. And in that practice, you discover a wealth no market can touch. It is a wealth of peace, of gratitude, of freedom from the chains of illusion. And perhaps for the first time, you glimpse what it means to be truly rich, not because of what you hold, but because of what no longer holds you. There is a reason why we are never satisfied, why even the biggest paycheck feels smaller than our worries, why even the newest purchase fades into the background of desire. The reason is impermanence. Nothing lasts, nothing stays, nothing can give us permanent security, because by its very nature, life is always changing. We see it everywhere. The house you grew up in may now belong to strangers. The clothes you once loved sit forgotten in the back of a closet. The job that once felt secure became another line on your resume. Every possession, every dollar, every symbol of stability is moving, shifting, slipping away like sand through an open palm. And yet, we cling. We cling as though clutching harder will make the shifting stop. But impermanence is not an enemy to fight. It is a teacher to understand. If you drop an ice cube into your hand, it begins to melt immediately. You can grip it tighter, but the heat of your palm only makes it disappear faster. The same is true with money, with possessions, with life itself. The tighter we grasp, the more quickly it slips away. But if we accept impermanence, if we see clearly that change is the rule and not the exception, something inside us relaxes. We stop demanding permanence from what is temporary. We stop expecting security from what is unstable. Instead, we learn to appreciate what is here while it is here. We savor the meal without needing it to last forever. We enjoy the comfort of a home without imagining it defines who we are. We use money as a means, not as a measure of worth. This shift is not about rejecting wealth or living in poverty. It is about right relationship. The Buddha once spoke of the middle way, the balance between indulgence and deprivation. To live wisely with money is to walk that middle path, not enslaved by craving, not shackled by fear, but free to use resources without being used by them. Imagine a man building a sandcastle at the beach. He shapes it carefully, towers and walls rising under his patient hands. But all the while, the tide is coming. He knows the water will reach it, knows the castle will fall, yet he still builds with joy because he understands its nature. The point was never permanence. The point was the beauty of creating in that moment. Our lives, our wealth, our possessions are no different. If we build them expecting them to stand forever, we suffer. But if we build with awareness of impermanence, we can enjoy them fully and let them go gracefully when the tide comes. The practice of knowing enough, called santuthi in ancient texts, is the antidote to endless craving. It begins not with the world changing, but with the heart shifting. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" you begin to ask, "What is truly enough?" Enough is not a fixed number, not a certain salary, not a particular bank balance. Enough is a state of mind. It is the moment when you sit with a meal, however simple, and feel gratitude instead of lack. It is when you look at what you already own and realize you do not need another version to be complete. It is when you see that peace comes not from chasing, but from resting in what is already here. This does not mean you stop working, stop earning, stop striving for improvement. It means you stop believing that the next achievement, the next paycheck, the next purchase will finally fix the hole inside. That hole is not filled by external gain, because it was never created by external lack. It was created by the mind that compares, that craves, that clings. Knowing enough closes the hole, not by pouring more into it, but by realizing it does not need to be filled. Think of a traveler who carries a heavy backpack. Each step is painful, each mile exhausting. Then he discovers that half of what he carries is unnecessary. He sets it down, and suddenly the journey becomes lighter, freer. The landscape is the same, the distance is the same, but his burden has changed. That is what happens when you embrace contentment. The road of life does not suddenly become easy, but your steps are lighter, your breath easier, your heart freer. You may still work for money, but you are no longer working for worth. You may still save for the future, but you no longer sacrifice the present in fear. You may still spend, but with awareness, not compulsion. This freedom does not come from renouncing the world, but from seeing it clearly. When you see impermanence, you stop demanding permanence. When you see enoughness, you stop chasing endlessly. And in that stopping, you discover a peace that no economy, no market, no bank can give or take away. There is a story told of a king who asked his wise minister to craft him a ring that would make him calm in both triumph and disaster. The minister brought him a simple band engraved with 4 words, "This too shall pass." When the king won battles and grew proud, he read the words and remembered not to cling. When he lost and fell into despair, he read the words and remembered not to give up. Impermanence is not only a warning, it is also a comfort. Pain passes. Fear passes. Debt passes. Even the heaviest burden will shift. Nothing is fixed, and that means freedom is possible in every moment. To live with this wisdom is to stop living as a prisoner of numbers. You begin to see wealth in places money cannot touch. The breath moving in and out of your lungs, the laughter of a child, the kindness of a friend, the beauty of a sunset. These cannot be bought or sold, and yet they are priceless. When you see this, the obsession with more begins to fade. You still care for your responsibilities, but you no longer believe your identity depends on your possessions. You still make plans, but you no longer demand certainty from what is uncertain. You begin to walk lighter, freer, with a heart no longer chained to illusions. And perhaps for the first time, you feel a wealth that no bill can erase, no market can destroy, no loss can diminish. A wealth of presence, of gratitude, of freedom. a wealth that comes not from grasping, but from letting go. It is late at night, and the house is finally quiet. The lights are off, the streets outside are empty, yet your mind refuses to rest. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, your body tired, but your thoughts wide awake, spinning like a wheel that never stops. What if I forget tomorrow's deadline? What if I lose my job? What if I never find love? What if something happens to my family? The questions arrive like uninvited guests, knocking louder and louder until your chest feels tight and your breath short. You roll over, check the clock, do the math, and realize how few hours are left until morning. Anxiety grows sharper in the silence, like a shadow that expands when there is no distraction. The more you try to push the thoughts away, the more powerful they become. It feels as if the mind has turned against you, trapping you in a cage with invisible bars. Anxiety is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, a constant background hum that never goes away. You are at work, trying to focus, but a restless energy buzzes beneath the surface. You are with friends, laughing, but a part of you is absent, lost in worry. You are walking down the street, and suddenly your heart races for no clear reason. The body reacts as though chased by danger, yet the only threat is inside your own head. Anxiety is the imagination misused. The same mind that can create art, solve problems, and plan for the future also creates endless scenarios of failure and catastrophe. The future becomes a movie theater where every reel is disaster. And though none of it has happened, the body feels it as if it were real. The heart pounds, the stomach knots, the palms sweat. You are rehearsing for tragedies that may never occur, yet your body pays the price right now. This is the exhausting paradox. You fear the future so deeply that you cannot live in the present. And because you cannot live in the present, you never find peace. Anxiety robs you twice, first of the imagined tomorrow, and then of the real today. Consider how much time is lost to worry. Hours spent imagining conversations that never happen. Days consumed by dread of results that turn out differently. Weeks wasted on fears that dissolve the moment reality arrives. The truth is that the future rarely unfolds the way the anxious mind predicts. And yet the habit persists, because worry gives the illusion of control. If you imagine every possibility, maybe you will be safe. If you rehearse every outcome, maybe nothing will surprise you. But control is a mirage. The more you chase it, the more it recedes. Life will always contain uncertainty, and the anxious mind tries to solve it by spinning faster. Like a hamster running on a wheel, you run and run, but you never arrive. Have you noticed how anxiety shrinks the world? You hesitate to try new things, fearing failure. You avoid people, fearing judgment. You postpone dreams, fearing disappointment. Slowly, the cage becomes smaller until your life feels confined, not by real walls, but by imagined ones. You think you are protecting yourself, but you are only trapping yourself. Anxiety convinces you that safety lies in overthinking, when in truth, safety lies in freedom from overthinking. Imagine your mind as a clear blue sky. Thoughts are clouds drifting across. Some are light, some are dark, some move quickly, some linger. Anxiety happens when you forget the sky and identify with the clouds. You think the storm is who you are, forgetting the vastness that holds it all. But the sky is always there, untouched by the weather. Even the darkest storm cannot stain it. This is the beginning of wisdom, to realize you are not the storm, you are the sky. When you pause and witness your thoughts instead of clinging to them, a gap appears. In that gap, freedom begins. You see a thought arise. What if I fail tomorrow? Instead of spiraling into panic, you simply note, there is a thought of fear. Already, the chain weakens. Anxiety thrives on identification, on the belief that every thought is true, every fear is reality. But when you observe, you step back. You shift from being the actor trapped in the play to being the audience watching the scene. And from that distance, you begin to see the illusion. You realize that thoughts are not commands, not predictions, not destiny. They are passing events, like birds crossing the sky, like waves rolling on the sea. You do not need to follow every bird. You do not need to fight every wave. You can watch them come and go, knowing none of them define you. Of course, the habit of anxiety does not vanish overnight. The wheel has been spinning for years, and it will not stop with one breath. But each moment of awareness is like a hand reaching for the switch. Slowly, the speed decreases. Slowly, the storm weakens. And even before it disappears, you find more space to breathe. Consider the practice of anchoring in the body. When the mind runs wild, the body can bring you back. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the air touching your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. These are not distractions, but reminders of reality. Anxiety lives in imagined futures, but the body lives only in the present. And the present, though imperfect, is almost always more bearable than the future your mind invents. There is an old saying, if you have one leg in the past and one leg in the future, you are pissing on the present. Crude, but true. Anxiety is the future swallowing today. The practice is to return again and again, not by force, but by gentle noticing. Each time you return, the grip loosens. Each time you observe instead of react, the chains weaken. Anxiety says, what if everything goes wrong? Awareness answers, what if I simply breathe right now? Anxiety says, what if I cannot handle it? Awareness answers, I am handling this moment already. Slowly, you begin to see that the restless mind is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a habit to be understood. Like a frightened child, it calls for reassurance, and when ignored, it screams louder. But if you meet it with patience, with kindness, it begins to soften. Anxiety does not need punishment, it needs understanding. And that understanding begins with the simple act of seeing clearly. This is a thought, not the truth. This is fear, not reality. This is passing, not permanent. The storm will rage, yes, but the sky remains vast, untouched, waiting for you to remember who you are. When you sit quietly and watch the mind, you begin to see how thoughts come and go without your command. They arrive like guests you never invited. They leave when they choose, and no amount of force can control their timing. This realization can be unsettling at first. If I am not in control of my own thoughts, then who am I? But soon it becomes liberating, because you begin to see that you are not the stream of thoughts at all. You are the one who notices them. Thoughts rise, thoughts fade, and yet something in you remains, silent and steady, like the sky untouched by passing clouds. This is the essence of mindfulness practice. Not to stop thinking, not to fight the anxious mind, but to rest in the awareness that notices. In that awareness, you discover that anxiety is not who you are. It is just a pattern moving through you. Like waves on the ocean, it may be intense, even violent, but it never defines the ocean itself. The ocean is vast, the waves are temporary. In the same way, your awareness is vast, and the storms of anxiety are passing movements within it. Imagine sitting on a hillside, watching clouds drift across the sky. Some are white and soft, others are dark and heavy. They move at different speeds, they take on different shapes, but none stay forever. If you were a child, you might even enjoy them, pointing out shapes and laughing as they transform. But somewhere along the way, we forget to enjoy and begin to identify. We see a dark cloud and think, this is me, this is my fate, this is forever. But the cloud moves on, and only the sky remains. When you remember this, anxiety loses its grip. You stop believing that every thought is a prophecy. Every fear is a fact. You learn to say, "This too is just a cloud." You let it drift instead of clutching it. You return to the openness of the sky. There is a practice called noting, simple but powerful. When a thought arises, instead of following it, you label it gently. Worry, fear, planning, judging. Then you let it go. Another thought comes, you note it and release. You do not argue, you do not suppress, you simply name it and allow it to pass. This act of naming creates space. It reminds you that a thought is just an event in the mind, not a command you must obey. Over time, this practice transforms the relationship with anxiety. The mind may still produce storms, but you are no longer swept away. You stand on the shore, watching waves rise and fall, knowing you are safe on solid ground. Consider how much suffering comes not from what happens, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what happens. You feel a tightness in your chest and think, what if this is a heart attack? The story creates panic, but the sensation itself was only tension from stress. You send a message and do not get an immediate reply, and the mind invents stories of rejection or anger. Hours later, you find they were simply busy. Anxiety thrives in these imagined stories. Awareness interrupts them. When you see the story forming, you breathe. You return to what is actually here. The chest is tight. Notice the tightness, not the story. The message is unanswered. Notice the waiting, not the imagined rejection. You begin to live with what is real instead of what is feared. This shift is subtle but life-changing. The anxious mind constantly jumps to, what if? What if I fail? What if I lose? What if I cannot cope? But awareness gently brings you back to what is. What is here now? The ground beneath your feet, the breath moving in and out, the sounds around you, the sensations in the body. And almost always, the present is manageable. It is the imagined future that feels unbearable. This is why ancient teachings emphasize returning to the present. Not because the present is always easy, but because it is the only place where peace is possible. The future is not here, the past is gone, but the present can be met moment by moment. Even if it is difficult, it is real, and reality is easier to carry than endless imagination. Sometimes anxiety feels like a fire spreading uncontrollably. The instinct is to fight it, to stamp it out. But fighting fire with fire only makes it burn brighter. Instead, imagine pouring cool water on the flames, not through force, but through gentleness. A breath is water. Awareness is water. Compassion for yourself is water. These do not extinguish the fire immediately, but they stop it from spreading. Slowly, the flames weaken. Slowly, the ground becomes safe again. Self-compassion is crucial. Anxiety often comes with judgment. Why am I like this? Why can't I control myself? Why am I so weak? But judgment is another layer of suffering. It adds weight to the burden you already carry. Imagine a friend sitting before you, trembling with worry. Would you scold them? Or would you offer kindness, a gentle hand, a soothing word? You deserve the same. Anxiety is not weakness, it is a human experience. To meet it with kindness instead of condemnation is to heal the wound instead of deepening it. There is a story of a monk who carried a heavy sack everywhere he went. One day, a passerby asked why he did not put it down. The monk laughed and said, "I had forgotten it was optional." Anxiety is often like that sack. We carry it because we believe we must, because we forget that putting it down, even for a moment, is possible. Each breath, each pause, each act of awareness is a way of setting it down, even briefly. And those brief moments accumulate, teaching the body and mind the freedom is possible. Over time, the restless mind learns to trust stillness. The wheel that spun endlessly begins to slow. The cage that felt unbreakable reveals its open door. You realize that peace was never far away. It was simply hidden beneath layers of fear and habit. The sky was always vast, even when storms filled the horizon. The invitation is not to destroy the storms, but to remember the sky, to live as awareness, spacious and clear, through which all things pass. And in that remembering, anxiety loses its power. It may still visit, but it no longer rules. It may still whisper, but you no longer believe its every word. You become free not because the mind is silent, but because you are no longer enslaved by its noise. And that freedom, once tasted, begins to spread through every corner of life. You discover calm in the middle of chaos, clarity in the middle of confusion, and a quiet strength that no worry can erase. You sit in a crowded cafe, voices and laughter filling the air, the hum of espresso machines in the background. People are gathered in groups, leaning close, sharing stories, their eyes bright with connection. You sit with your coffee, phone in hand, scrolling through endless posts, yet the loneliness is sharp, as though you are separated from the world by an invisible wall. Surrounded by people, yet feeling utterly alone. This is one of the paradoxes of our age. We have more ways to connect than ever before, yet so many feel more isolated than any generation before. Dating apps promise love at your fingertips. Social media promises constant companionship. Yet when the phone is silent, the silence in the heart feels unbearable. Loneliness is not just the absence of company. It is the absence of connection. You can be in a crowd. You can have hundreds of contacts in your phone, yet still feel unseen, unheard, unknown. What the human heart longs for is not just presence, but presence that is genuine. Someone to look at you and not through you, someone to hear you beyond your words, someone to hold your truth without judgment. The hunger for this kind of connection is so deep that it drives us into desperate searches. We swipe endlessly, hoping the next face will be the one. We scroll for hours, hoping likes and comments will fill the void. We cling to relationships, even unhealthy ones, because the fear of being alone feels greater than the pain of being misunderstood. Love becomes not a place of refuge, but a battlefield of expectations. We hope another person will complete us, fix our wounds, silence our loneliness. And when they cannot, disappointment cuts deep. Loneliness within a relationship can feel even harsher than loneliness alone. To lie next to someone and still feel unseen, to speak and feel unheard, to reach out and find no warmth, that pain is sharper than solitude. Many carry it silently, smiling on the outside, aching on the inside, wondering if anyone will ever truly understand. Loneliness is not a weakness. It is a signal. It is the heart's way of saying, I long for connection. But the mistake we make is believing that connection must come only from outside. We forget the first connection, the one with ourselves. How can we expect another to love us fully if we cannot sit with ourselves in kindness? How can we expect another to see us if we refuse to see our own worth? Imagine a candle burning in a dark room. Its flame is steady, quiet, warm. Another candle enters the room, and with one touch, the flame spreads. Now there are 2 lights, then 3, then 4. Each candle shines on its own. It also gives light to others. Love works the same way. If your flame is weak, if you do not tend it, you will seek another to ignite you. And when they fail, the darkness returns. But if you nurture your own flame through self-understanding, through compassion, then when you meet another, it is not from emptiness, but from fullness. 2 lights meeting, not 2 shadows grasping. Loneliness often comes because we are disconnected not only from others, but from ourselves. We distract, we avoid silence, we drown our own company with noise. The phone becomes a constant companion because we fear what might surface if we sit quietly. But the truth is, Loneliness is eased not by constant noise, but by gentle listening. Listening to your own heart, your own breath, your own presence. To sit and realize, I am here. I am enough. From this ground, connection with others becomes possible. Because then, love is not about filling a hole, but about sharing an overflow. Think of the times when you felt most deeply connected to another. Was it because they gave you something material? Or was it because they gave you their full presence? Eye to eye, heart to heart, no agenda, no mask. Presence is the true currency of love, and yet it is the one most often missing. We rush, we multitask, we half listen, and so the hunger grows. What if love is simpler than we think? Not grand gestures, not perfect matches, not flawless fairy tales, but the small, consistent act of being present. To look into someone's eyes and truly see them. To listen without planning your reply. To hold space for their pain without rushing to fix it. This is love in its purest form, and it does not require perfection. It requires attention. Loneliness tells you that you are unworthy, that you are broken, that you must earn love by being more attractive, more successful, more impressive. But this is the illusion that keeps you chasing. In truth, worthiness is not earned. It is inherent. Just as the sky does not need to prove itself to be vast, your heart does not need to prove itself to be lovable. The practice is to remember this worth again and again, until loneliness no longer feels like proof of your lack, but simply a passing cloud in the vastness of your being. There is a story told of a young person who asked a teacher, "How can I ever find someone to love me?" The teacher replied, "First learn to sit alone without fear. Then love will find you." This is not a rejection of relationships, but a reminder of foundation. If you cannot find peace in your own company, you will carry restlessness into every bond. But if you can sit in silence and feel whole, then every connection you make will be a sharing of wholeness, not a grasping from emptiness. Of course, human beings are made for connection. We are not meant to live in isolation. Community, friendship, intimacy, these are essential for a full life. But they flourish only when they are built on presence and compassion, not desperation and demand. To connect deeply with others, we must first learn the art of compassion. Compassion is more than kindness. It is the willingness to feel another's suffering as our own, to open the heart even when it hurts. When you practice compassion, loneliness begins to shift because you realize that others carry the same pain. You are not alone in being alone. Millions feel the same ache, though they hide it well. When you see this, the wall between you and others begins to crumble. The shared humanity becomes visible. Loneliness tells you, you are isolated. Compassion answers, we are together in this. And from that truth, real connection grows. Imagine for a moment that love is not a scarce resource, not something you must earn or deserve, but something that flows naturally like sunlight. The sun does not decide who is worthy of warmth. It shines on all, on the rich and the poor, on the kind and the cruel, on the flowers and the weeds. Compassion works in the same way. It is the recognition that every being, no matter how different, carries the same longing to be happy, to be free from suffering. When you touch this truth, your heart begins to soften. You see beyond the masks people wear, beyond their defenses and mistakes, and you glimpse the vulnerable human underneath. Suddenly, the loneliness eases because you realize connection is not built on perfection, but on shared humanity. There is a practice called loving kindness, or metta, that has been passed down for centuries. It begins simply by sitting quietly and repeating phrases of goodwill, first toward yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. At first, the words may feel hollow, even awkward. But with patience, they begin to take root. You start to feel a gentle warmth in your chest, a sense that you are worthy of kindness, that you deserve your own care. From there, the circle expands. You extend the same wishes to someone you love. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Then to someone neutral, perhaps the clerk at the store or the neighbor you barely know. Then to someone difficult, someone you resent. And finally, to all beings everywhere. This practice may sound simple, but its effect is profound. It trains the heart to see connection where the mind sees separation. It melts the illusion of isolation. You begin to realize that loneliness is not cured by finding one perfect partner, but by awakening the natural capacity for love that has always lived within you. Love is not something you must receive first. It is something you can generate, and in generating it, you connect with the world. Compassion does not erase pain, but it transforms it. Imagine carrying a heavy stone alone. The weight is crushing, but then others come, lifting with you, and suddenly the burden is lighter. When you open to the suffering of others, you share the weight, and in doing so, your own suffering feels less isolating. This does not mean you drown in others' pain. True compassion has balance. It is not pity, not martyrdom, but the steady recognition that we are in this together. When someone lashes out in anger, you see the fear behind it. When someone withdraws in coldness, you see the loneliness beneath it. This vision turns enemies into teachers, strangers into companions. The heart grows spacious, able to hold more than before. Think of a mother cradling a crying child. The child is overwhelmed, but the mother does not become the fear. She holds it, soothes it, surrounds it with warmth. In the same way, compassion allows us to hold our own loneliness, our own anxiety, with gentleness instead of judgment. It also allows us to hold others' pain without being consumed. This holding is the beginning of true connection. Love then is not a transaction, not "I will give if you give back." It is a state of being. It flows naturally when the walls of self-protection soften. And when it flows, it transforms every relationship. A simple conversation with a stranger can become meaningful. A brief smile can feel like a bridge across worlds. A moment of genuine listening can heal wounds that years of silence deepened. Often we imagine that to heal loneliness, we need someone extraordinary, a soulmate who completes us. But in truth, what we need is ordinary compassion, given consistently, received openly. Loneliness shrinks when we feel seen, and we can begin by seeing others. The act of reaching out, of offering kindness without expectation, creates the very connection we crave. There is a story told of a man walking through a village. Everywhere he went, people greeted him with warmth. A traveler asked why he was so loved, and the villagers replied, "Because he always greets us with love first." He was not waiting to receive kindness. He was generating it. In that act, he dissolved the distance. This is the secret of compassion. It turns strangers into friends and isolation into belonging. Of course, there will be times when compassion feels impossible. When someone hurts you deeply, when the world feels hostile, when your own heart feels closed. But even then, the practice is not to force, but to be willing. Willing to see the humanity beneath the hurt. Willing to offer even a small drop of kindness, even if only in thought. Over time, this willingness opens doors you never imagined. You may still feel loneliness, but it no longer crushes you. It becomes a reminder to reach, to connect, to love more widely. Compassion does not eliminate the human need for close relationships, but it transforms how you approach them. Instead of seeking someone to fix your emptiness, you seek to share your fullness. Instead of clinging out of fear, you connect out of freedom. Relationships built on this ground are more resilient because they are not weighed down by unrealistic demands. They are spaces of mutual presence, where two beings walk together without trying to own or complete each other. In this way, compassion is not only medicine for loneliness, but also the foundation for love that lasts. When you look back on your life, the moments that will shine are not likely the expensive gifts or the grand gestures. They will be the small moments of true presence, the friend who sat with you in silence when you were hurting, the child who held your hand without words, the stranger who smiled at you on a difficult day. These are the treasures that fill the heart, the connections that remind us we are not alone. And the beauty is, you can create these treasures for others every day. A kind word, a patient ear, a simple smile, these may seem small, but for someone else, they may mean everything. In giving them, you also receive, because love is never one way. Like the candle that lights another, your flame does not diminish. It grows brighter. Loneliness tells you to withdraw, to hide, to wait for someone to come save you. Compassion invites you to open, to share, to be the source of the very love you long for. And when you dare to open, you discover that the world is not as cold as you feared. There are hearts waiting to connect, but someone must take the first step. Why not you? The practice of compassion is not an escape from loneliness. It is the doorway through it. It teaches you that love is not scarce, not conditional, not withheld until you are perfect. It is already here, waiting to be awakened. And when it awakens, the hunger softens, the walls dissolve, and the heart rests in its natural state, connected, radiant, whole. The screen lights up before you even finish waking. Notifications spill across the glass, each one demanding attention, each one whispering that the world is moving and you must keep up. You scroll without thinking, thumb swiping again and again, eyes absorbing endless images of people smiling, traveling, achieving, posing. At first, it feels harmless, even entertaining. But then something shifts. A quiet unease creeps in as you notice the comparison rising in your mind. Their life looks brighter, their body looks better, their career seems more successful. Without meaning to, you begin to measure your worth against the curated highlights of strangers. A heaviness grows in your chest, a voice whispering, "I am not enough." This ritual is repeated millions of times each day. Technology was supposed to connect us, but so often it leaves us disconnected from ourselves. The endless feed is not a mirror, but a funhouse distortion, reflecting back images that feed insecurity and craving. We compare our ordinary days to the extraordinary moments of others. We forget that behind every perfect photo lies a hidden struggle, a moment not captured, a truth not posted. Yet the mind does not care about logic. It believes what it sees. And what it sees is everyone else shining while you stumble in the dark. Ego thrives on this environment. Ego is the voice that says, "I must prove myself. I must be seen. I must stand out." It measures worth in likes, in followers, in recognition. When someone praises you online, the ego swells with pride. When no one responds, it shrinks in shame. Like a puppet dancing to invisible strings, you find yourself caught in cycles of validation. The ego feeds on comparison. It whispers that you must always be ahead, always be better, always be admired. But the truth is that comparison has no finish line. No matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone with more. And so the hunger never ends. You refresh the screen again and again, chasing crumbs of affirmation, yet never feeling full. Technology amplifies this hunger because it offers constant mirrors. In the past, you might compare yourself only to neighbors or coworkers. Now, with one swipe, you compare yourself to millions. The scope of comparison is infinite, and so is the dissatisfaction it breeds. You may tell yourself you are above it, that you do not care about likes or followers. But notice how quickly the heart responds when a post receives attention, and how it sinks when it does not. This is not weakness. It is the design. The platforms are built to hook the mind, to exploit the ego's need for recognition. But knowing this, you are faced with a choice. Do you let the ego run your life, or do you begin to question its grip? Imagine standing before a mirror. You see your reflection and believe it is you. But if the mirror cracks, does your face break? If the mirror disappears, do you vanish? Of course not. You are not the reflection. Yet every time you identify with the image you project online, you are making the same mistake. You are more than the reflection. You are more than the curated self displayed for others. The Buddha taught the truth of no self, the insight that the I we cling to so fiercely is not solid, but a collection of changing elements, thoughts, feelings, memories, roles. They shift constantly, and yet we mistake them for something permanent. Ego is the illusion that this shifting bundle is a fixed identity that must be defended and polished. Technology has magnified the illusion, giving us tools to build digital masks, polished versions of ourselves. But no matter how perfect the mask, it cannot satisfy, because deep down we know it is not the whole truth. And so we live with a subtle dissonance, projecting one image while feeling another reality inside. This dissonance feeds loneliness, anxiety, and exhaustion. To step free from the grip of ego is not to delete all technology or abandon the world. It is to remember that the reflection is not the self. You can use the tools without being used by them. You can share without attaching your worth to the response. You can engage without confusing validation for love. Imagine a clear lake. When the surface is calm, it reflects the sky perfectly. But if the water is disturbed, the reflection is distorted. The sky itself, however, is unchanged. Your true self is like that sky. The reflections in technology may change. The images may distort, but the essence remains untouched. The practice is to return to that essence again and again, not clinging to the shifting reflections. When you catch yourself comparing, pause. Notice the feeling in your body, the tightening in the chest, the sinking in the stomach. Name it gently. Comparison, envy, insecurity. Do not judge it. Simply notice. This simple act breaks the trance. You begin to see that the comparison is not truth, but just another cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. When the ego demands recognition, you can smile at it like you would at a child demanding candy. You do not have to obey every demand. You can choose when to respond and when to rest in silence. Slowly, the grip of ego weakens. Technology will not disappear. Comparison will not vanish. But your relationship to them can change. Instead of being pulled like a puppet, you become the one who chooses how to engage. You begin to see that real worth is not found in likes, not measured by followers, not defined by applause. Real worth is inherent, like the light of the sun that shines whether or not anyone notices. When you begin to live from this truth, the hunger softens. You no longer need to prove yourself at every turn. You no longer measure your day by digital numbers. You begin to taste a freedom that technology cannot steal and comparison cannot touch. The ego may still whisper, but it no longer rules. And in that freedom, you rediscover the simple joy of being unmeasured, unfiltered. Enough.ego whispers constantly, a restless companion in the mind. It says, "This is me, this is mine, this is who I am." It clings to names, to faces, to titles, to possessions, as if these fragile things could define something as vast as a human being. But the more tightly we grasp this idea of I, the more fragile life becomes. Every criticism feels like an attack on identity. Every loss feels like the end of self. Every comparison feels like a judgment on worth. We live in a cage, built not from steel, but from belief. The Buddha taught that this cage is an illusion, that the self we defend so fiercely is not solid, but made of shifting parts. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions rise and fade. The body grows, changes, weakens. Memories flicker, roles shift, circumstances evolve. Nothing remains the same, yet ego insists there is a permanent I at the center. This is the illusion of self, and it is the root of endless suffering. Imagine a cart rolling down the road. You see wheels, wood, axles, a seat, a handle. You call it a cart. But if you take it apart, where is the cart? In the wheel? In the wood? In the handle? There is no separate thing called cart apart from its parts. In the same way, when you look closely at yourself, you find thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, consciousness, but no permanent I. The self is a convenient label, like cart, useful for daily life, but empty of fixed essence. Realizing this is not meant to frighten, but to free. Because if the self is not fixed, then you are not limited. You are not defined forever by mistakes, by labels, by failures, by the reflection in the digital mirror. You are more fluid, more spacious, more open than ego allows you to believe. Technology constantly feeds the illusion of self. Every profile, every picture, every post is another attempt to say, "This is me." But notice how quickly me changes. Yesterday, you posted one thought. Today, another. Yesterday, you looked one way. Today, slightly different. The digital self is no more permanent than the physical self. It is a stream of images, curated and shifting. Yet we cling to it as if it could prove who we are. What if instead of grasping, you treated these images like reflections in a mirror? Useful, yes, but not the essence. When you stand before a mirror, you do not mistake the reflection for your body. You know it is just light bouncing back. In the same way, you can learn to see the digital self as reflection, not reality. It points to something, but does not contain it. And beyond even that reflection lies the deeper truth. Your essence is not in the image at all, but in the awareness that sees it. This awareness cannot be liked or disliked, cannot be increased by followers or decreased by critics. It simply is vast and unshaken. Returning to this awareness is the practice of freedom. How do you return? By pausing when the ego flares, by noticing the grasping, by asking gently, who is this I that feels so threatened? Who is this I that needs so much validation? If you look closely, the I begins to dissolve. You see fear, you see craving, you see thought patterns, but no solid owner. And in that seeing, a weight lifts. You realize you are not the puppet of ego. You are the spaciousness in which ego appears. This is what it means to loosen the grip of ego, not destroying it, not erasing identity, but no longer being enslaved by it. Ego becomes like a costume you can put on when needed, but not a skin you cannot remove. You use it in the world, your name, your role, your profile, but inside you know it is just a role, not your essence. And because you know this, you can play the role lightly, without fear, without desperation. Think of an actor on stage. She plays her part fully, crying, laughing, fighting, loving. But inside, she knows she is not the character. When the curtain falls, she takes off the costume and walks away free. The ego is the costume, the role. Awareness is the actor. Forgetting this, you suffer as if the play were life and death. Remembering this, you can live fully yet remain free. Technology can then become a stage, not a prison. You post, you share, you connect, but you do not confuse the performance with the performer. You know the difference between the reflection and the sky. This knowledge brings lightness. You stop taking every comparison so seriously. You stop measuring your worth by numbers on a screen. You stop fearing criticism as though it could destroy you. because you see clearly. The you they praise or blame is only the reflection, not the vast awareness that you truly are. Practices can help you anchor this understanding. Sit quietly and observe the mind. Watch as thoughts arise. I am not good enough. They are better than me. I need to prove myself. Instead of believing, whisper gently, not self. Watch the thought fade. Another comes. I am great. I am admired. I am special. Again, whisper, not self. Over time, the mind learns to release both praise and blame, both pride and shame. They lose their grip because you no longer mistake them for who you are. Another practice is compassion. When ego compares, it divides, me versus them. But compassion dissolves the division. When you look at another and see their struggles, their fears, their longing to be happy, you realize they are not competitors, but companions. Comparison softens into connection. The hunger to prove yourself weakens, replaced by the desire to walk together. Compassion is the antidote to ego's grip because it shifts the focus from self to shared humanity. Imagine the relief of living without constant defense, without constant measurement. You wake up and no longer need to prove yourself online. You work without needing every task to build your identity. You love without turning the other person into a mirror for your ego. This is not passivity. It is freedom. You still act, you still strive, you still engage, but not from desperation. You act from clarity, from wholeness, from a place that knows it cannot be diminished by comparison or enhanced by applause. The ego's grip weakens with every act of awareness, with every compassionate thought, with every reminder that the reflection is not the self. Slowly, life becomes lighter. You scroll through the feed and see smiles, vacations, achievements. Instead of envy, you feel gladness. Instead of insecurity, you feel peace. You know your worth is not in the race because you have stepped off the track. You are no longer measuring, no longer competing. You are simply living, breathing, being. And in that being, you taste the freedom that was always available, hidden beneath the illusion of self. The mirror can still show its images. The world can still praise or blame, but you remain untouched, like the sky that holds every cloud without being changed. This is the gift of loosening ego's grip, not an escape from life, but a return to life as it truly is vast, open, free. You work for years, chasing milestones like stepping stones across a river. Graduate from school, get the job, buy the car, find the partner, move into the house, climb the ladder. Each goal feels urgent, each step a promise that once you reach it, life will finally feel complete. And for a brief moment, when you achieve it, there is satisfaction. The diploma in hand, the promotion in your inbox, the keys to the new house jingling, it feels like victory. But then, almost silently, the glow fades. What was supposed to be the finish line reveals itself as another starting point. The mind asks, what next? And so the cycle continues. No matter how much you achieve, a quiet emptiness follows, an echo in the heart that whispers, is this all? Many do not speak of this emptiness, because on the outside, their lives look successful. The career is strong, the family is present, the house is beautiful. To admit the inner hollowness feels like betrayal, like ingratitude. But deep inside, in the quiet hours when the noise dies down, the ache is there. A sense that despite all the accomplishments, something essential is missing. This is the crisis of meaning, and it is more common than we realize. Human beings are storytellers by nature. We weave narratives to give life direction. I am this, I will become that. I must achieve this. These stories carry us forward, but when the story runs out, when we have achieved what we imagined, the silence that follows can be deafening. If meaning is only tied to external goals, And when those goals are reached or lost, meaning collapses. This is why even the most celebrated figures, actors, athletes, leaders, sometimes confess to depression, to despair, to emptiness. They stood on the summit they had dreamed of, and instead of bliss, they found a void. The truth is not that meaning does not exist. The truth is that we search for it in the wrong places. We look outward to achievements, possessions, recognition. But meaning is not an object to acquire. It is a way of seeing. When you tie meaning to things that change, meaning itself becomes fragile. But when you root it in what does not change, it becomes steady. Imagine a musician who believes her worth lies only in applause. Each performance may thrill her, but once the clapping ends, she feels empty again. But if she shifts, if she sees the meaning in the act of playing itself, in the beauty of the sound, in the joy of creating, then every moment becomes meaningful, applause or not. In the same way, if we see meaning as something given by others or achieved in the future, it will always slip away. But if we discover meaning in the present act of living, it is always here. The Buddha spoke of life as a wheel, samsara, turning endlessly through desire and disappointment. We chase, we grasp, we suffer, because we believe the next thing will finally complete us. But the wheel keeps turning, and we remain bound. To step free is not to stop living, not to reject goals, but to shift where we place our faith. Instead of believing meaning will come someday, we learn to taste it now in the simple miracle of being alive. Consider sitting with a child who is laughing freely, unburdened by goals or achievements. In that moment, is life meaningless? Or standing before a sunset, watching the sky turn gold and crimson? Is there no meaning there? Meaning is not found in accumulation, but in presence. In being fully alive to what is here, instead of postponing life for some future accomplishment. The emptiness many feel is not proof that life is meaningless, but proof that we have been looking in the wrong direction. We looked outward when we needed to look inward. We sought permanence in impermanent things. We tried to fill the infinite longing of the heart with finite achievements. And so the longing remained. The invitation of wisdom is to pause the chase and ask, what is it I truly seek? Beneath the desire for success lies the desire for peace. Beneath the desire for recognition lies the desire for love. Beneath the desire for achievement lies the desire to feel whole. These are not found in trophies or titles. They are found in awareness, in compassion, in presence. Imagine a man searching for his glasses all over the house, frantic and exhausted, only to realize they were on his head all along. Meaning is like that. We search the world desperately, yet it has been here, in the simple fact of being alive, in the capacity to love and be aware, in the stillness that has always been present beneath the noise. The world tells you that you must leave a legacy, that meaning is measured in how many remember your name. But think of the tree outside your window. It does not strive for fame, yet it offers shade, beauty, oxygen. Its meaning is not in recognition, but in simply being what it is. Perhaps our deepest meaning, too, is not in what the world applauds, but in living authentically, in offering kindness, in being fully present for the brief and precious span of years we are given. This is not a passive resignation. It is a radical shift. It is to see that meaning is not somewhere far away, but always at hand, waiting in each breath, each step, each act of love. The search ends not in acquiring more, but in realizing more deeply what is already here. We live in a world of extremes. One voice says you must push harder, achieve more, never stop climbing. Another voice says to abandon it all, to withdraw, to reject responsibility. But both voices leave us restless, because one burns us out and the other leaves us empty. The Buddha saw this struggle long ago, after living both extremes himself. First he drowned in luxury, surrounded by wealth and pleasure, yet found no peace. Then he starved his body in ascetic discipline, reducing himself to skin and bone, yet still found no peace. Only when he sat quietly beneath a tree and discovered the middle way did clarity come. The middle way is not a compromise between two extremes, but a different path altogether. It is the recognition that life is not meant to be a constant battle of indulgence and denial. It is meant to be lived with balance, with awareness, with enough. Too tight, the string of the lute snaps. Too loose, it makes no sound. Just right, it produces music. So it is with life. When you live too tightly wound, chasing goals and clinging to identity, you break under stress. When you live too loosely, avoiding effort and abandoning responsibility, you drift without purpose. But when you live in balance, engaged yet unattached, you find harmony. This harmony is not built on achievements, but on awareness. The real question is not what you do, but how you do it. You can work long hours and still be at peace if you are present and not consumed by ego. You can rest in stillness and still be engaged with life if you rest with awareness rather than escape. Meaning is found not in the quantity of what you achieve, but in the quality of how you live each moment. Consider the act of eating. You can eat distractedly, rushing through, barely tasting, already thinking of the next task. Or you can eat with presence, noticing the flavors, feeling gratitude for the nourishment, aware of the body receiving what it needs. The food is the same, but the meaning is entirely different. Life works the same way. Awareness transforms the ordinary into sacred. A walk becomes meditation. A conversation becomes connection. A moment of silence becomes a doorway to peace. This is the heart of the middle way, not rejecting the world, not grasping at it, but walking through it with steady steps, aware, balanced, open. Many people search for meaning as if it were hidden in a distant mountain or buried in some secret code. But meaning reveals itself when you are fully present. When you stand beneath the night sky and feel awe. When you listen to a friend without judgment. When you breathe and simply know you are alive. These are not grand achievements, but they carry a depth that no trophy can match. The middle way teaches that freedom is not found by running from life, but by seeing life clearly. You begin to notice that everything is interconnected. The breath you take depends on trees and oceans. The food you eat depends on countless hands that planted, harvested, transported. Even your thoughts are shaped by teachers, writers, strangers you have never met. You are not a separate self-chasing meaning alone. You are part of a vast web of life, and in recognizing this, a new sense of belonging arises. Loneliness softens when you see that you are already connected, always have been. Meaning, then, is not about becoming special, but about living with awareness of this connection, offering your presence, your compassion, your love as part of the whole. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Come back to now. When the mind races into the future, whisper gently, "Not yet." When it clings to the past, whisper, "Gone." Then return to the breath, to the step, to the sound. Again and again, return. Each return is a victory. Each return a reminder that meaning is here, not somewhere else. Over time, the restless chase quiets. You no longer demand life give you ultimate answers. You no longer expect achievements to fill the hole. Instead, you live the questions with presence, and in doing so, you discover that the whole was never there. The heart was always whole, only covered by layers of craving and illusion. There is a parable of a man who searched for treasure for years, digging in distant lands, exhausting himself in the quest. At last, weary and broken, he returned home, only to discover the treasure buried beneath his own house the entire time. This is the human story. We search the world for meaning, yet it waits quietly within, in the awareness that is already present, in the love that already flows, in the peace that arises when we stop searching and begin living. The middle way is not a destination, but a way of walking. Balanced, aware, compassionate. It does not promise a life without difficulty, but a life where difficulty no longer destroys you. It does not promise endless joy, but the capacity to meet both joy and sorrow with steadiness. It does not give you meaning from outside, but reveals the meaning that has always been inside. To live awake, to live with love, to live in presence. When you begin to live this way, the old emptiness fades. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you no longer demand it to be. You discover contentment in the simple, beauty in the ordinary, depth in the present. The chase ends, and in its place arises a quiet, steady joy, the kind that does not depend on circumstances. And perhaps, in that moment, you realize that the search for meaning was never about finding something new, but about remembering something timeless, the truth that to be here, awake, alive, and loving is meaning enough. The journey has been long, and in many ways, it is the same journey you have already been walking in your own life. You began in stress, feeling the constant weight of the modern world pressing on your chest. You recognized how the endless cycle of busyness drains joy, how even in moments of rest, the mind refuses to stop running. You saw that stress is not only about work or responsibilities, but about the way the mind clings, resists, and carries more than it must. And you discovered a door to freedom in something as simple as a breath, in the pause that clears the water, in the awareness that remembers you are not the storm, but the sky. You then faced the hunger for security and money, the bills that arrive like silent messengers of fear, the comparisons that whisper you are behind, the endless grasping that never satisfies. You saw how money, like sand, slips through the tightest grip, how the illusion of permanence crumbles again and again. And you discovered that true wealth is not in numbers, but in enoughness, in contentment, in the ability to see impermanence not as enemy, but as teacher. You found that peace comes when you stop demanding stability from what is unstable. When you let money be a tool instead of an identity. When you rest in the abundance of the present moment rather than the mirage of future security. Then you walked into the restless terrain of anxiety, the sleepless nights, the racing heart, the imagination spinning disasters faster than reality could ever deliver. You saw how the mind rehearses tragedies, how it convinces you that safety lies in worry, when in truth worry only steals the present. And you discovered another way, the way of awareness, of noting thoughts as passing clouds, of feeling the ground beneath your feet, of remembering that you are the sky, not the storm. Anxiety did not vanish, but it lost its power because you learned to see it, to name it, to breathe with it rather than be consumed by it. From there you turned to love and loneliness, the hunger for connection in a world more connected and more isolated than ever before. You felt the sting of sitting in a crowd and still feeling invisible, of scrolling through endless feeds and still feeling untouched. You saw how loneliness is not only about others, but about the disconnection from yourself. And you discovered compassion, the candle that lights other candles without losing its flame. You discovered that true connection begins when you tend your own flame, when you practice loving kindness toward yourself and extend it outward. You found that love is not a transaction, not something to be earned or proven, but the natural radiance of a heart that remembers its worth. Compassion dissolved the illusion of isolation, showing you that loneliness is not proof of your lack, but evidence of a shared human longing, a bridge waiting to be crossed. Then you faced the trap of technology and comparison, the endless mirrors of social media reflecting distorted images, feeding the ego's hunger to be seen, admired, affirmed. You recognized how ego thrives on comparison, how it measures worth in numbers, how it clings to the illusion of a fixed identity that must be defended at all costs. You saw how exhausting it is to live as a puppet of ego constantly performing, constantly polishing their reflection. And you discovered the liberating truth of no self, that the I you defend is not solid but shifting, that the reflection is not the essence, that awareness is the sky untouched by every mirror. You learned that freedom comes not from destroying ego, but from loosening its grip, from remembering that the costume is not the actor, that the mask is not the face, that your worth does not rise or fall with digital applause. And finally, you came to the question of meaning, the quiet ache that follows even the greatest successes, the echo that asks, "Is this all?" You saw how achievements thrill briefly and then fade, how the chase never ends because the heart seeks something deeper than trophies or titles. You realized that meaning collapses when tied only to external goals, but blossoms when rooted in presence. You saw how the middle way offers balance, how awareness transforms the ordinary into sacred, how belonging arises when you recognize your place in the web of life. You discovered that the treasure you searched for in distant places was always buried at home, within the heart that is capable of awareness, compassion, and love. All of these lessons are not distant philosophies, but living truths. They are not reserved for monks in robes or sages in caves. They are for you here, in the middle of your modern life, with bills to pay, responsibilities to meet, relationships to nurture, and struggles to endure. The teachings do not ask you to escape your life. They invite you to transform how you live it, to pause when stress presses down, to see impermanence when money feels unstable, to breathe when anxiety takes over, to offer compassion when loneliness bites, to loosen ego when comparison stings, to return to presence when meaning feels lost. These are not small acts. They are radical shifts, seeds planted in the soil of your daily life. And seeds grow, slowly, quietly, often unseen, but they grow. Each time you take one conscious breath, you water the seed of peace. Each time you choose gratitude over craving, you water the seed of contentment. Each time you extend kindness to yourself or another, you water the seed of love. Each time you remember that you are the sky and not the storm, you water the seed of freedom. Over time, these seeds become a garden, a place within you where peace blooms naturally, where joy arises not from circumstances, but from awareness itself. And this garden is not only for you. When you live with awareness, others feel it. Your calm becomes their calm. Your compassion becomes their refuge. Your presence becomes their reminder. Just as stress spreads silently, so does peace. Just as anxiety radiates, so does love. Your practice becomes a gift, rippling outward in ways you may never see, but which touch lives nonetheless. Perhaps you wonder, can such simple practices really change the world? But pause and consider. Every act of kindness you have ever received, every moment when someone listened, every time someone was patient instead of harsh, did it not change your world in that moment? If such small acts transformed you, then your acts can transform others. This is how the world shifts, not only through grand revolutions, but through countless small awakenings, one breath, one act, one heart at a time. And so we arrive at the end of this journey, though in truth, it is not an end, but a beginning. You have walked through stress, money, anxiety, love, technology, and meaning, and you have seen that the path of freedom runs through them all, not by rejecting them, not by waiting for perfect conditions, but by living them with awareness, balance, compassion, and presence. The invitation now is simple. Take what has touched you, what has resonated, and apply it. Do not wait for a perfect tomorrow. Begin with one breath today. Begin with one act of kindness today. Begin with one moment of presence today. Life will still bring stress, bills, anxious nights, moments of loneliness, ego's whispers, and questions of meaning. But you will not meet them as you once did. You will meet them as awareness, as presence, as the sky that holds every storm without being shaken. And in that meeting, everything changes. Imagine years from now, looking back. You may not remember every word of this journey, but you will remember how you felt when you began to live it. Lighter, freer, more at peace, more connected, more alive. That is the gift waiting for you, and it has always been here, in every breath, in every moment, in every step. The final question is not whether peace exists, not whether meaning exists, not whether love exists. They do. The final question is whether you will choose to open to them here and now. The door is already unlocked. All you must do is step through. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. May you know the freedom that cannot be taken, the love that cannot be diminished, the meaning that cannot be lost. And may you remember always that you are not the storm, you are the sky.